The question is that this House do now adjourn. Mr Ben Bradshaw.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. I requested this debate because, having joined the Commons Transport Select Committee about a year ago, I became struck by how little attention is being given to the multiple ways in which car clubs and other shared transport can help national and local government meet their multiple policy objectives. Shared transport is about giving people access to cars, bikes and other vehicles without the need to own them. And I should perhaps declare an interest here. My husband and I have not owned a car for more than 25 years. When we need one, which is much less often than we thought we would, we use the South West's fantastic car-sharing scheme, Co-Cars, which is a cooperative based in Exeter and of which I was one of the founder members. For those people who don't know how such schemes work, they can vary a bit, as can their ownership models, but essentially you register, you book the car or van nearest to you online, using an app in some cases, you pick it up using a smart card and you drive it away, returning it when you're finished. It's simple, it's much cheaper than buying and owning a car for oneself, there's no insurance, maintenance or parking headaches. As well as the cost, there are also climate change, air quality, local amenity and congestion advantages to car sharing. According to the RAC Foundation, the average private car sits doing nothing for 96.5% of its lifetime. What a waste of money and valuable urban space. And as we transition as a country over the next few years to e-vehicles, simply replacing private internal combustion vehicles with electric ones will not be enough to meet our zero carbon targets and will do nothing to tackle congestion. In fact, you could argue, with people feeling less inhibited to drive if they're driving an e-vehicle, it's quite likely that congestion will get worse without a reduction in the total number of private vehicles on our roads. Yes, of course I'll give way.
Thank you for giving way. You've brought a very important point to the main chamber tonight, an issue which I think concerns us all across the whole of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And does the honourable member not agree that by not involving these sectors, the car clubs and the shared transport, and coordinating with them as he is outlining, we are missing the potential of getting people off the roads and into shared transport, which benefits the environment, which is referred to, and also helps people's press finances?
Yes, I do agree with that, Madam Deputy Speaker, and car clubs represent a fantastic resource to both national and local government to achieve exactly those aims. There are around currently 6,000 car club vehicles in the United Kingdom. The number of active car club members, that's people who've joined, renewed or used a car club in the last 12 months, is approaching 500,000. That's a massive 96% increase in just 1 year. And the total membership is 784,122, a 24% increase over the previous year. The transport sharing umbrella organisation Como UK has found for every car club vehicle, 18.5 private cars are taken off the roads. That's taking into account the reduction in the number of cars owned by members or purchases that don't take place. Nationally, because car club vehicles are on average only just over 1.5 years old, their carbon emissions are around on average 26% lower than the average car in the United Kingdom. In Exeter, we're lucky to have more than 50 co-cars, including 20 electric vehicles and more than 150 electric bikes, and they're somewhere on a street near you. 11% of car club cars nationally are electric, and that's compared to less than 1% on the privately owned cars across the United Kingdom. And so they make driving an electric car not only possible for those who can't afford it, but easily accessible. Access and social equity are crucial here. 20% of car club members said that they wouldn't be able to afford to buy a private car, but joining a car club gave them access to one when they needed one. And car sharing also accelerates modal shift. Since joining a car club, 16% of those who joined said they'd walked more, 10% said they'd cycled more, and 26% said they'd cut their car use overall. And I should stress here that shared transport covers a range of other modes, including bikes, e-scooters in the trial areas only, of course, demand-responsive transport, flexible buses, and lift share. And it also includes so-called mobility hubs, places that enable people to switch easily between public, active, and shared transport modes. And bicycle sharing has been shown to be a powerful tool to re-engage lapsed cyclists, with 50% of bike share members in the UK saying it was the trigger to get them back on a bike again, 53% saying they would have made their last trip by car or taxi if bike share had not been available. Now, the COP26 declaration on accelerating the transition to 100% zero-emission cars and vans, signed by the UK government, states, and I quote, "We recognise that alongside the shift to zero-emission vehicles, a sustainable future for road transport will require wider system transformation, including support for active travel, public and shared transport, as well as addressing the full value chain impacts from vehicle production, use and disposal." And the Secretary of State for Transport, in the foreword to the Transport Decarbonisation Plan in 2021, said, and I quote, "We cannot simply rely on the electrification of road transport, nor believe that zero-emission cars and lorries will solve all our problems." And the Transport Minister, the Honourable Member for Copeland, who I'm pleased to see in her place this evening, told the conference of Como UK in December last year that shared mobility must become the norm across the UK and that the country needed to do more to move away from, and I quote, 20th century thinking centred around private vehicle ownership and introduce greater flexibility with personal choice and low-carbon shared transport. Hear, hear to that, Madam Deputy Speaker. So everyone agrees shared transport's a positive thing that can help us meet multiple policy objectives. The challenge, though, is to create a coherent cross-government departmental policy framework and support for it. I'll give you a few examples. Firstly, electric vehicle charging. Car clubs are currently explicitly excluded from on-street residential charging schemes and are not positively included in any public funding framework or guidance relating to car clubs. We've been told an EV infrastructure strategy is coming soon for a while now, and there's also potentially a new EV infrastructure fund. But again, we haven't had any publication on or details, and no indication of whether any of this will necessarily improve on the current position. And this is despite what I said earlier, car clubs having 11 times the proportion of EVs in their fleets as in the general UK car fleet, and the access to EVs that car clubs provide at a fraction of the cost of leasing or owning an EV. Secondly, guidance to local authorities. The Transport Decarbonisation Plan promised a local authority toolkit in 2021. That's yet to appear. The plan also stated that the Department would support car clubs go fully zero emission, recognising that as car club fleets contain newer vehicles, they can lead to the transition to zero emission vehicles. However, again, we haven't yet had any further details on this. I want to move on now to national planning policy, which still doesn't do enough to favour decarbonisation options such as shared transport in spatial planning. Shared transport is not usually included within a scheme design at all, and the National Planning Policy Framework makes it difficult for councils to refuse applications that don't go far enough on shared transport proposals. Many good councils, like my own in Exeter, want to limit parking provision and require mobility hubs and transport sharing schemes, as well as good cycling and walking provision in their development plans, but the planning system neither recognises nor encourages this. Mobility hubs play a particularly valuable role in areas with high levels of pollution and low sustainable transport accessibility levels, and these should be actively pursued by both national and local government. Local government should also be required to actively support shared transport to achieve modal shift, placing it at the heart of their transport strategies. And they should also develop sustainable transport hierarchies to recognise the very different role shared cars play as opposed to privately owned vehicles, and include data from shared transport in their official transport statistics for the area. Next, traffic regulation orders are cumbersome and expensive. A consultation on improving that system to make it quicker and more innovative and adaptable was promised, but again, it has not appeared. Fifthly, public transport accessibility levels, or PTALs, should be updated to sustainable transport accessibility levels, STALs, which would encompass all forms of sustainable transport, including shared transport. Sixthly, taxation. The current system is based entirely on the private ownership of cars, with shared transport paying the same full rate of VAT as privately owned ones. Now, the Treasury could help a lot here by tweaking the tax regime in a revenue-neutral way, if need be, to incentivise vehicle sharing. And seventhly and finally, we'd like to know where the future of transport bill is. It appears to be stuck somewhere in government, meaning we will soon reach the second anniversary of the e-scooter trials, at a time when every other developed nation has either legalised and regulated them or has committed to doing so. I know the Minister in the House today shares my enthusiasm for shared transport as a multiple solution to her transport challenges and those we all face, and I look forward to listening to her response to this debate with interest.
Minister Trudy Harrison.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am delighted to be speaking about shared transport, but I was even more delighted to hear of the Honourable Member's reference to his co-forming of the car club in his local area in Exeter. And I would welcome a meeting to discuss in more detail exactly how he went about that, the lessons learned, and perhaps that can inform how we help other areas, particularly rural areas, because I myself represent my hometown or home village in the Lake District, and I really see an opportunity for car clubs to be of great assistance to people living in rural areas and urban areas. So I would like to begin by congratulating my honourable friend for raising this, my right honourable friend, for raising this and securing the debate on shared transport. He clearly has set out 7 measures, I think I've counted, in how we could potentially improve shared transport and make it more accessible to everyone. I listened to the issues raised by the Right Honourable Member and will do my best to address them all, actually. As the Right Honourable Member knows, we are committed to creating a future transport system that works for absolutely everyone. My department and I are making sure that transport is accessible to all, meaning people in our cities, towns, villages and everywhere else have got greater choice, greater freedom to get around. We want to see safer streets. We want to see more accessible and fairer travel, smoother journeys and better infrastructure to create the cleaner, quieter, less congested transport system I think we all want. So before I talk about the work already underway in my department, I wanted to take some time to talk about why we're doing this, because shared transport has the potential to improve choice, creating greater freedoms when travelling, and shared transport such as car clubs and lift sharing is about using what we have more efficiently. I love cars. I've been driving, Madam Deputy Speaker, for 28 years, would you believe. I don't currently own a car, and I'd like to thank the member for Strangford for that comment there. I don't personally own a car, and perhaps it's not a car club that I have with my husband, who does own our car. But I think about my own personal circumstance, because we drive a 7-seater, primarily because I have 4 daughters. Although nowadays it's more about the pub run than the school run. However, do I want to always drive a 7-seater? Sometimes it might be more appropriate to drive a smaller car, or maybe, living in the Lake District, a convertible car to really enjoy the scenic views in my community. And I think that is the choice. This is not about people not being able to own cars. We welcome that. But it's about the opportunity to do things differently. And as the Right Honourable Member has mentioned, the average car is parked at home for 80% of the time. It's parked elsewhere for 16% of the time. It's only on the move for 4% of the time, on average. This shows us the massive potential for greater sharing to allow people without cars greater access to the economy and flexibility about how they travel. 7 million front gardens now contain concrete and cars, rather than flowers and grass and biodiversity and bees and butterflies. This is the equivalent of 100 Hyde Parks. We also know that around 25% of adults in England do not hold a full driving licence, and only a quarter of those aged 17 to 20 are in that category. I know that in our area, learning to drive is often considered a passport to adulthood, but I don't think it should always have to be the case, and this is about the flexible choice. New transport options can mean greater access for those who aren't able to travel independently or who don't currently have many choices. Car clubs can provide a cheaper alternative, with 20% of car club users saying they joined a club because they could not afford a car. If we can show the benefits of sharing, showing it is a safe, efficient and cost-effective alternative, then that could be a major benefit for our communities, meaning less isolation, less loneliness and greater access to the economy and services. There are major changes already underway in the transport sector. Services are becoming more digital and more data-driven, with apps available to plan and pay for journeys becoming the norm. Electrification and the move towards zero-emission vehicles is well underway as we roll out charging infrastructure across the country, and we're seeing early self-driving vehicle technology on our roads already, with a UK world leader in testing and deployment of self-driving vehicles. Business models like car clubs and a greater emphasis on sharing provide greater choice to the public, whilst also helping to cut emissions and decongest our roads. As the Right Honourable Member referred to, we're also trialling rental e-scooters across the country, including in my own constituency of Copeland, which can also help decongest our roads and reduce emissions, particularly for shorter journeys. In making the regulations to enable the trials of rental e-scooters, my department has significant support from local areas who are keen to trial e-scooters in a safe and controlled way. And the trials supported my department's green restart of local transport and helped mitigate reduced capacity on public transport as a result of the pandemic. These trials enable us to gather robust and meaningful data that can be used when deciding whether e-scooters should be more widely and permanently legalised, as well as assessing their safety and the wider impacts. Shared bikes are now a common UK service available in cities, providing us with more choice and flexibility from getting to A to B. And I was delighted to hear that the Honourable Member's own local club also provides bikes as well as cars. These are just some of the ways that transport is already changing. We can expect the transport system of tomorrow to look radically different from today as these changes expand and evolve. They present opportunities for more people to have access to training and jobs, as well as enabling businesses to have access to highly skilled staff, which will help to level up places that are left behind. People and goods being able to move around efficiently and cleanly is a key driver of the change we want to see. And more access to shops and services will provide a boost for the economy. That's why we're determined and working to support businesses and communities to ensure these are positive changes, making a genuine difference to the way that we travel. And the Right Honourable Member referenced our transport decarbonisation plan. It's supporting the changes underway in and how transport will improve how we get around. But there are also major environmental challenges ahead. And we need to make the most of this change to meet these challenges head on. This is why we've set such high ambitions for the future of transport in this country. Last summer, my department published the TDP, the first such plan in the world, which sets the transport sector on the path to net zero by 2050. We have set ourselves a wide range of ambitious commitments in the transport decarbonisation plan across all modes of transport. It also shows the benefits from decarbonisation that are there to be seized: significant economic growth, job creation, and the emergence of new technologies to improve transport in the UK. Our commitments to supporting shared transport mean greater choice and freedom and more efficient ways to travel, We've committed to measures that will ensure a better, more flexible transport system whilst also delivering on our net zero ambitions, and we're helping businesses to see the benefits of shared transport and more sustainable forms of transport, providing guidance to local authorities to help manage and deliver schemes to support businesses and communities. I want to provide an update on the progress being made in the department with respect to shared transport and to respond to the points raised by the Right Honourable Member. We have worked closely with leading stakeholders since the publication of the Transport Decarbonisation Plan to begin delivering against our commitments. And I've met with leading shared transport organisations like Como, as he referenced, and Liftshare, who I understand were instrumental in the commissioning of the car club in Exeter, and the Urban Mobility Partnership, who represent leading operators like Enterprise, Stagecoach and more. In November, I visited California, where I signed a memorandum of understanding between the UK and the City of Los Angeles to foster cooperation on the challenge of decarbonising transport, supporting innovation and growth, and accelerating the deployment of emerging technologies that can improve our communities. We've already launched a consultation on mobility as a service and aim to publish new guidance to help shape the emergence of these platforms in the UK. This will mean that planning and paying for a journey will be easier, quicker and more accessible. The Right Honourable Member mentions the Transport Decarbonisation Toolkit, which my department will soon publish. This is really important because we recognise local authorities are key partners in rolling out the infrastructure, developing and implementing new policies and learning from best practice. We'll begin delivering schemes that benefit local communities. So this toolkit provides practical advice on setting up car clubs and other shared transport schemes, and to help improve transport planning by putting shared and sustainable modes at the heart of local transport plans. This means support for zero-emission car clubs too, so that communities across the UK can benefit from electric vehicles. My department, through the Office for Zero Emission Vehicles, is supporting charging infrastructure rollout to meet this demand. Currently, we have around 27,000 public charge points in the country, of which 5,200 are rapid. We know this needs to be accelerated, and we are working at pace to do just that. One such example is Project Rapid, to ensure that we've got at least 6 rapid chargers of at least 150 kilowatts in all of the 117 motorway service areas in England. Just one example. The Right Honourable Member also refers to on-street residential charge point schemes, which support public on-street electric vehicle charging. And whilst this does not fund charge points dedicated to car club vehicles, such vehicles can and do use the infrastructure, meaning that they are still able to benefit from the rollout of the infrastructure. Officials are currently developing the scope and design of the upcoming Local Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Scheme, LEVI, and we will be able to say more about that in the infrastructure strategy, which he also referenced, which we are aiming to publish very, very shortly in the coming weeks. We are developing the Commute Zero programme, aiming to reduce single occupancy journeys. Reducing these by just 10% could remove 500,000 tonnes of CO2 each year, the equivalent of doubling rail use. We'll publish the Future of Mobility Urban Strategy. We already have published the Future of Mobility Urban Strategy in 2019, which set out clear principles for the development of our transport systems in cities and towns. And this year, we'll also publish a Future of Transport Rural Strategy, making sure that the benefits of innovation are felt by our rural and remote communities as well. On accessibility, I'm committed to the inclusivity of our transport networks. And our inclusive transport strategy looks to create a transport system that is accessible for all. Our Future of Transport strategies highlight the need for future transport technologies to be inclusive by design, designed with disabled people in mind from the outset. Working with organisations such as Mobility, we know that shared transport can give more opportunities and options, helping us to meet our ambition that disabled people must have the same access to transport and be able to travel confidently, easily and without extra cost. So the National Planning Policy Framework includes policies to facilitate access to high-quality public transport and indicates that all development should address the needs of disabled people in relation to all modes of transport. We're also considering how we can empower local authorities to locate development around areas with high levels of access to sustainable transport modes and where high-quality walking and cycling routes can be developed, actively promoting sustainable transport and active travel as the first choice for journeys. As the Prime Minister set out, we want half of all journeys in towns and cities to be walked or cycled by 2030. And to do just that, we have appointed Chris Boardman as the Interim Chief Executive on Active Travel England to work with the department, local authorities and support, in fact, in his words, I believe, not just encourage but enable people to be able to walk and cycle. With regards to the consultation on proposed reforms to the traffic regulation order process mentioned by the Right Honourable Member, I'm pleased to say that this consultation was launched on Monday. Digitisation of the TRO process will bring an archaic system up to speed with the modern world whilst providing rich geospatial data to support better management of traffic, deliveries and parking. The Right Honourable Member also mentioned legislation. With regards to the bill, which brings forward wider reforms to prepare the UK for the future of transport and the technological revolution that is underway, I'm pleased to say that we intend to bring forward legislation as soon as parliamentary time allows. I would just conclude on the matter of taxation. As the Right Honourable Member knows, this is a matter for HM Treasury, so I will follow up on the points he raised with the Financial Secretary to the Treasury. And I want to conclude by thanking the Right Honourable Member for securing this debate. As I hope I've explained, shared transport is a vitally important part of how we secure a future transport system that is sustainable, accessible and available to everyone in society. Today, I think, Madam Deputy Speaker, he has raised a number of important issues that my department and I are working hard to tackle through our Transport Decarbonisation Plan and our Future of Transport programme. We're working to ensure that all parts of the country benefit from the innovations in transport, building on the rich heritage in the motor industry that the UK is so proud to have played its part in the global way that people have got from A to B, and that people have greater freedom of choice on how to travel, and that we're doing our part to make our communities cleaner and safer. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
The question